You're welcome back from that quick timeout. It's still Daybreak here on Trust TV, and it's time for us to look at stories that made it to the front pages of our dailies this morning. Now, starting off with Daily Trust, we have boldly there in front: reps move to stop multiple budgets, proposed deadline for presentation. Now, we have pictures that are showing military retirees protesting at the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Finance in Abuja for overdue and unpaid entitlements. It's quite sad. On the top left, tax reform bills. We're going ahead for Nigeria's sake, says Akpabio. Islam not against girl-child education, says the Sultan. You'd find that on page 26. And on page 6, Mark's airplane carrying Zulum's deputy and others makes emergency landing. Ex-servicemen shot finance ministry over unpaid entitlements. I thought I was Jukun, says Tanko Yakase at 99. And a man breaks wife's hand and leg for attending clinic without permission. Corruption has brought Nigeria to its knees, says ICPC. Those are the stories we have on the front pages of Daily Trust newspaper. So do well to grab a copy if you're interested in any of the stories to keep yourself informed. Now moving on to Guardian. On Guardian newspaper, boldly there on National Health and Demographic Survey, it says spike in teenage pregnancy stirs dire public health and social concerns. Truly indeed social concerns and public health issues. Still on Guardian, Labour Party fumes, vow legal action as 4 lawmakers defect to APC. And detain Okwama president died in military facility. 2027, Jonathan's campaign posters flood Kano. Politics, corruption, bane of education in Nigeria, says Tetfon boss. Akpabio counters Barrow, insists tax bills on course despite oppositions. And we have below there, Nigeria's budget under threat as OPEC extends production cuts. The federal government opens probe as panel fire guts NSIPA warehouse and NPower tools. All right, those are the stories we have on Guardian this morning. Now let's move to Punch. On Punch, 29 states spent 2 trillion naira on travel and others. A report, states governors borrowed 533 billion naira, generated 1.92 trillion naira IGR, serviced debt with 658 billion naira. Still on Punch, PDP trustees tackle NWC over NEC, meet Wike in January. Tax reform, Senate denies suspending debate as Southern senators meet. And APC berates faction flooding Kano with Jonathan's 2027 posters. Still on Guardian, overtime vehicles custom plan auction after 2 weeks ultimatum. No report of missing party girls in Lagos, says the police. And Amnesty alleges 10,000 die in Nigerian military detention. Those are the stories we have on the front page of Guardian. Now let's take a look at Tribune. On the Nigerian Tribune this morning, blackout, Genco's TCN discos in trouble as Senate threatens to reverse privatization of sector, accuses them of adding no value, laments each grid collapse cost $25 million to restart. That is boldly there on Tribune. Still on Tribune, PDP chair, but insists on zoning office to North Central. And Borno deputy governor and over 100 others escape plane accident. Federal government launches 20 billion naira consumer credit fund for locally assembled automobiles. Ibori's daughter, 4 LP federal lawmakers defect to APC. And court OK's probe of funds allocated to 17 local governments in Abia State from 2019 to 2023. Those are the stories we have on the front pages of the Tribune. If you're interested in the end of the story, do well to grab yourself a copy. Next, we have Business Day. On Business Day, boldly there in front, the first story we have, inflation bite as a liter of petrol equals a 1975 Peugeot wagon. that is there on Business Day. And we also have Khan Funke Akindele break a billion naira box office record. That's on movie. 1 year T-bill attracts 2.5 trillion. Record high bid. All right. These are the stories we have on the front pages of Business Day. Now, joining us in the studio this morning. Joining us in the studio this morning to, look at the stories that have made it to the front page of the newspaper and review the stories this morning. We have Nuruddin Abdallah, editor, 21st Century Chronicle, as he joins us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. So let's do it differently. Which of the stories speak to your attention this morning that you'd love to comment on?
Okay, I think the story in Daily Trust, the budget, the National Assembly are amending the Constitution to stop multiplicity of budget at a time. Well, I think amending some section of the Constitution, and what they are trying to do is to restrict the presidency, the executive arm, to just one supplementary budget per fiscal year. My thinking is this: why do we have all this? Why are we operating 3 budgets at a time? Why are we having 2, 3 supplementary budgets in the same year? There is a causative factor that needs to be tackled. Implementation. Poor implementation. Our budget, the only thing that we implement is the salary aspect of the budget. Salary, overhead, allowances, maybe, and to a certain extent, maybe debt service. But when you're talking about the capital aspect of it, how many percent? During the last few years, Buhari was beating his chest that I think he has jacked it up to, is it 35% or so? Whereas in other countries, take the United States for instance, every line of the budget, provided it is passed by the Congress and assented by the President, becomes a law, line by line. It becomes a law. Violation, non-implementation of that budget is an impeachable offense. So the moment the President of the United States assented to a budget, nobody goes back to him that there's no money. It's the responsibility of the Treasury to look for money from anywhere to ensure that the budget is implemented from A to Z.
Okay.
That is what we should look out for here. The implementation capacity. So we have to do a sort of a realistic budget. That you have supplementary because you have huge deficit. You understand? So these are some of the issues. Instead of amending the Constitution, the President, unless if there is some of the, why we have supplementary budget at times, when there is transition. The 2003 budget was not done by the Tinubu administration. It was done by Buhari administration. So he inherited that budget. And if, for instance, even though the same party, there are certain things that he thinks that they are very personal, he's passionate about it, and they are not there, he has to do supplementary budget.
Okay.
To include it. So these are some of the issues, not one constitutional amendment or what have you. Do the real thing. Get the implementation to certain 60-70%. You don't need supplementary budget.
And one thing we've learned about Nigeria and we've seen over time is that it is easy for the information to come out on paper. It is difficult for the implementation to be actualized. Which brings us to still on some of the things that came out from the Senate and plenary yesterday was from Gencos and Discos as Senate threatened to reverse privatization of the sector, accusing them of adding no value, saying the privatization is not for every Nigerians because we're still experiencing various grid collapse. There's still issue with electricity from vandalism to grid collapse to blackouts. What's your thought on their take on this and how they are approaching it? Is it too late or is it too early, or are they looking at it with a square mind? What's your thought on that?
I think they are playing to the gallery. The National Assembly was there when the privatization was done under Jonathan. What have they done? Yeah, you can see that some of them, majority of them are not there at that time. But the assets, the distribution assets were auctioned to people with zero capacity to maintain them in terms of technical expertise and it being the monetary aspect of it. Apart from maybe you talk of ECO, you talk of Ikeja, they are the best performing. And why this is a function of the economy or where they are located. Take Yola, for instance. It has been grappling. Take the Jos Disco. Take the Kano Disco. Take the Kaduna Disco. Kaduna Disco has changed hands in the last 8 years of Buhari almost 5 or 6 times. Because they collected money from a bank to run the discos. They bought it from the money. They couldn't even service the debt. That's why you see the management has changed. Management has changed so many times. So it's a factor. It's still a Nigerian factor. We do things not on their merit. Yeah, and one pseudo patriotism. If we cannot maintain, we are still a population of over 220. We are beating our chest for the first time now. We have reached a generation capacity of 7,000 megawatts with distribution capacity of less than 4,000. It keeps on dwindling. In the last couple of months, years, you recorded 0 generation. Grid collapse. Do you hear grid collapse in Chad, Niger, whatever? So these are the issues. They are just playing to the gallery because they will harass some of the. When the privatization was done, the National Assembly was there. But they were mute because some of the people that got those assets were members of the National Assembly. Or even, I'm talking to now, majority of them. I'm even surprised in the Senate. Those behind the Kaduna Disco, Kaduna Electric, are in the Senate, yes, it's a fact. I don't know what you're saying when. So these are the issues. We have to be realistic. Beyond talk, do the real thing. And unfortunately, again, some unscrupulous civil servants at that time with some government agents collaborated and scammed Nigeria and Nigerians by inserting some devilish clauses. Buhari wanted to revoke the privatization. But do you know the litigation it will generate? Do you know you privatize something and you are still giving them bailout? You can see the.
Yeah.
So these are the issues that we should guard against. And I hope the same 10th Assembly is not superintending those scams against Nigeria. We saw what happened with PID. We saw what happened with Mambila. Government people will sit down with private sector, do some clauses, and those are the totem pole of power, for one reason or the other, will not even look at the agreements. They will just ratify it.
All right. Now, still on ratifying and looking at agreements and looking at bills and all of that still from the Senate. Yesterday, we spoke about the tax reform bills and the controversy it created, the role of the media, the whole drama it created for at least a week plus in Nigeria. Had everybody talking, everybody was sharing their opinion, everybody was talking about it. And it's been taken back to be revisited. Now, we heard Fabio coming out to say that, it's on course despite opposition, meaning they just went to revisit it by the judiciary, meaning he said it's still on course. Now, what's your take on this and, the whole tax reform bill and the drama it generated for the past couple of weeks?
The unnecessary drama. No, I think the media goofed. They are, like Akpabio said, only the president can withdraw them. The National Assembly, by their rules, can only accept or reject them. But withdrawal is the president. And the president did not withdraw them. What he did was simply, he sent his people to meet with the National Assembly to amend the gray areas. But more importantly, I wanted to see a newspaper maybe I blame the government to a large extent. Tinubu has almost a dozen spokespersons. I want to see them in the Southwest, speaking in Yoruba, explaining the bills. In the Northwest, speaking in Hausa. In the Northeast, speaking in Igbo. In the North Central, speaking in Gbagi, Nupe, or Tiv language. But they have just fizzled out. You have about 12 of them. And you hardly see them talking about, oh, they don't even understand what the bills are all about. The only person that is talking about them